If I look at my company for the last 8 years, at least it's changed something like 22 times.
So, hi Nissim, welcome to Utopia Decision Room podcast. Today our guest is Nissim. He spent 20 years inside the hardest decision environment on earth, defense, homeland security, and government, then built an AI platform to systemize what he learned, a system that takes complex, high-stake decisions and make the logic behind them transparent, auditable, and repeatable. He turned that into a multi-million dollar enterprise with presence across Israel, the US, and Europe. So the question this episode answers: what does it actually take to engineer certainty in a world of uncertainty? So, Nissim, for people who don't know you yet, could you give a short introduction of yourself, who you are, what is forecast, and where are you right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me here in your podcast, first of all. And a little bit about myself. I'm Nissim Titan. I'm the CEO and founder of Forecast with over, like you mentioned, 2 decades in experience developing decision support solutions. Actually, I tell people I was developing AI before people talked about AI.
Yes.
And what actually we did is we developed, I've been doing it for a lot of years. In 2018, I founded Forecast, an AI-powered decision intelligence platform where we're trying to get AI to the next level, to decision intelligence level. We're helping decision makers make the right options, achieve their goals by making better day-to-day decisions, understanding the impact and trade-offs. And I will be happy to share from my experience. So thank you for having me here again today.
Yes, absolutely. So you had 20 years in the hardest decision environments in the world. Like you could have stayed in those institutions forever. Why did you decide to jump and build a company instead of staying as the expert?
First of all, because I'm a founder by heart, right? I want to
Mm.
lead things, and yeah, I was the expert there, but I started creating a platform, started creating solutions, and then decided to create a company that will help decision makers achieve and make better decisions. Where actually I'm helping them achieve their goal. I like to say I help them achieve their lighthouse. You have a lighthouse, you want to be there, but you have a lot of distractions, a lot of disruptions that bother you, and I help you understand how to make better decisions by helping you with technology, understand the questions you need to ask, and data giving you those options.
So you launched Forecast in 2018. The face decision intelligence wasn't mainstream then until years later. So what did you call it back then when you first started it? Was it the same category?
Actually, we called it decision support. And if
Mm.
you know how things evolved, people talked about decision support. Also, today, when talking about it depends who you're asking. People call it AI powered decision intelligence. They call it in Gartner, they call it DIP, Decision Intelligence Platform. And Forrester, they call it AI for decision making. But actually, if you look at it, it's how things evolved. We had in the past BI where people thought they were making decisions based on BI, and BI is actually my situation according to 10 minutes ago. And now that we have AI, so it's more predictive, where we had predictive analytics, where we try to have some foresight what will happen. But decision intelligence is actually giving you actionable recommendations, not just giving you, this is your situation, this is what's going to happen according to your goals, but actually giving you actionable recommendation. What should you do? And we take it to the next level, showing you what's the impact, what's the trade-offs, and what's the options that you have achieving your goal with that decision. And I think that's the next level of AI.
So when you started this back then, were there any other competitors in the market? Because it's such a new category.
Always there's competitors because a lot of times BI vendors and predictive analytics vendors and augmented analytics and all those different categories said they're doing the same. It's also like today when we talk a lot about AI. So people
Mm.
think, that if you utilize Gen AI, then you answer decision making, but it's not. AI is actually built around 6 different techniques, and we utilize different techniques like optimization and simulation and graph and other capabilities in non-generative AI. And I think that's the challenge. But I think at this point, when talking about decision intelligence, that's really where we bring our value. And in the past, one of my challenges, as founding a company and growing, was explaining what's our value, what's our differentiator, what do we actually do. And I think now it's very there, it's very straightforward.
So this brings me to my next question. How long did you take during the early days when you were trying to find the product market fit?
Well, actually, I had a different approach, and it's funny because years after I learned about when I learned about lean canvas, I said, hey, this is what I've been doing for years. So my approach was always coming and understanding my end customer, right? So my end customer is decision makers, and usually what I try to do is visualize myself as that decision maker. And I think that's helpful advice for everyone. Visualize your end customer. What is his need? Does he get any value? Does he have any pain? Because you know what we've done in the past, we would develop a great idea, develop a great system, but who needs it? So what I actually did was bring this concept, create some kind of questionnaire, and go and meet those decision makers. So if I wanted to work, for example, in the health market, I would go and meet CEOs and try to understand their gaps, their problems, their needs. Where can I create that value that will answer that pain? And that's actually how I worked. Although later on, there's a lot of, back and forth when developing the product, adapting it, looking at the market fit. So yeah, it's a very interesting concept a lot of times.
So would you say there will be any kind of bias with decision intelligence based on the person perspective?
It depends. If you develop it correctly, it needs to take bias out. Depends who's the decision intelligence platform working. For us, for example, because we're working in defense sector, working in a lot of critical infrastructure, utilities, emergency managers, we developed models that take bias out, are based on best practice behavior models. So they also validate the data that is connected to them. So we take out the bias. But remember, at the end of the day, in this high stakes decisions, there's always a man in the loop. So our idea is giving that man options, explaining the impact and trade-off of each and every one of his decisions, and that's helpful. But there won't be 100% out of bias. There will be a little bit of bias anyway, always, but we're trying to get it out.
So would people make the end decision, the final decision, based on data more or based on their emotions, what they think of you?
They won't make it based on emotions. Look, actually, the world splits to 50-50. There's two kinds of decision makers. There's decision makers to talk about the end result, and decision makers to try to understand the process itself. And I think the approach of talking about data-based decision, data-centric, I think that's the old world. We need to talk about decision-centric, decision-driven organizations. And once we look at that option and we say, okay, look, you have a goal, this is your lighthouse, you have a lot of data. That's the decision-making gap. That's the middle. And what we're trying to help you is give you the decisions you need to make. For each decision, it's a bank of questions. We help you with the platform, and then we give you options and trade-offs. And that's what's missing. I look at myself as a decision maker. All my life, I was managing different decisions based on problems, but never have I got any options, any clarity, understand the impact, the trade-offs. If I would invest more in my development team, what will happen to my sales team, for example? And I think that's what we're creating in Forecast. That's what decision intelligence platforms are bringing now, especially with all this new capabilities we're seeing through the AI this last year or two.
So when you just started working with enterprises, companies, do you provide services to help them make the decisions, or it was directly to the platform?
So it's a combination. First of all, you need to understand the organization. You need to understand the decision maker. And what we do at Forecast, we map their goals. We map where they want to be. Then we bring our models that map what they have in the organization, the data. And it's a bottom up and down approach, connecting everything together to answer their exact questions, where we create different models connecting from risk assessment to behavior models to goal models, always managing that man in the loop concept of being their most trusted advisor, helping them make the right decision.
So do you think if you compare men and women, who makes decision quicker, and do women use more emotions when making decisions compared to using just the data?
I think that if you give people the option of seeing what will happen based on their option. First of all, helping them understand on what issues they need to make decisions. And for each decision, giving them different options. I'll give you an example. If I'm an emergency manager and I need to evacuate people, and you give me through a platform 3 options and explain for each and every one of the options the impact, the challenge, how many lives I'll save, then I can make a better, smarter decision. There will always be emotions, but I don't see the difference between men and women. I see the difference between different people, right? It's like people that your friends. You have a friend that if he wants to buy a car, he will check it for 3 months. And you have other people like myself that it will take me 10 minutes making a decision because it's based on your DNA and your different assumptions. And you can connect that to something called the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. And one of the issues there is your education, your culture, from where do you come, what have you done in your life, and that's a different aspect of decision making.
So do you see like decision intelligence benefits people who have a hard time deciding? Some people just can't decide when there are many options.
I think the difference with decision intelligence, it depends on what market you're working. For example, if you're a factory, then you can utilize decision automation, running faster decisions. For example, I need to purchase more milk. But if you're a high level decision maker, of course, it will help you make faster decisions. I can tell you from my customers in the defense sector, we've seen that utilizing our tool, it brought decision making faster by between 40 to 60%, planning 60% faster. So this is because it's already built according to your goals, bringing the right data, running recommendations in seconds, and that's very helpful for your decision making process. Yeah, and the world is moving there. Decision intelligence is the next step of AI, of course, mainly for decision makers in high stakes environments.
So with the growth of AI, I think it was after you developed forecast. Do you feel that decisions will be accurate with basic AI chatbot?
No, and this is what I talked about techniques. From the different six techniques, I think the major technique that is not relevant for decision making is actually Gen AI. But if you develop a concept of decision intelligence utilizing different techniques, for example, in the defense sector, talking about simulations, talking about optimizations of roads, talking about graph knowledge and things like that, then you will have more accurate decisions once you utilize models, behavioral models, data models, validating that data. Because at the end of the day, when you use Gen AI, a lot of times it's 60% accurate. You can use those LLM models, but once you have them based on some kind of a DIT platform, I think that's what you should use.
Mm-hmm. So, like you started really long ago and you came in with 20 years of domain expertise and the track record already working inside governments and enterprises. So, there's already a lot of credibility to sell to B2B enterprise. So, did this help with building enterprise trust?
Yeah, of course, it helps building trust from two ways. First of all, is your experience. But later on, as you know, today people develop a lot of new apps. But what you needed for making decisions is real models that were developed for a lot of years, real experience, real data that you can drill down inside it. So there's great apps, but you need also the core of the platform like we've been developing for a lot of years. But there's also a change in the end customer. There's a change in culture. In the past, when I would help decision makers, they would ask every question: who validated this? Who knows the simulation is correct? And today, while everyone is using, for example, Gen AI, they get an answer from Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, and it's yeah, true. Who said it's true? Did you validate that model? So it's interesting, and I think the fast pace that we're moving today is very, very to newcomers, to new founders. So very interesting, very exciting, at least.
And so, do you think like the evolution of AI, like all the new Gen AI tools like Cloud, OpenAI, Perplexity, does it affect anything in the decision intelligence category? Like if people would just use Gen AI to make decisions instead of something more complex, a different model?
I don't think they will help for decision making, at least not at this point, and I don't see it in 2 years from now helping in decision making because decision making is much more complicated, needs more reliability on frameworks and models and things like that. It's very helpful using those tools to collect the data faster, to create connectivity between different apps, different platforms, to create that chat, that you can ask and get answers. But talking about the verticals I'm working at, national critical infrastructure, defense customers, I don't think at those areas they will help. And this is where you will utilize all those decision intelligence platform. I told you that's next AI level from my point of view.
Yeah. So you will need the enterprise data in order to curate the decision intelligence for them, right? The questions. So how did you first started when the company is new, like to build the trust, to get the data and to build this questions intelligence for the company?
So first of all, we created those models And then we created at the beginning different POCs to show them that there is value, that they can trust the system. So our approach, first of all, land, bring some kind of problem you have, and we will have a POC around it. Then expand to different new questions, and later on create that scalability, growing. And once you create, your reputation, your brand with those customers, and they trust you, one of the main things I'm doing is I'm managing different capabilities from mathematical models to everything because my models need to be 100% accurate, 95% accurate, but they cannot be 60% accurate because we're talking about lives, about critical decisions, about supporting high level decision makers. And that's one of our main challenges.
So you have been building forecasts for 8 years now, and you started in Israel, and then when did you expand it to first? Like, was it Europe or US?
So I expanded very fast to the US. We had there an office. And later on, my approach was working with big companies, big partners like SAP. And this grew our footprint, in Europe, in a lot of areas that were growing. So we're growing pretty fast in Europe, in the United States, in other areas. Depends on what the kind
Yeah.
of market vertical.
So, like, which year did you started expanding into the US and Europe?
I actually immediately started expanding to the US because I brought a lot of years of experience before I founded Forecast. So when I founded the company, I immediately founded a subsidiary in the US, started working there immediately. It was more of a discovery in the US market, understanding the market. Also, remember that every place around the world has different regulations, different cultures, different behaviors, different AI ethics, or things like that that you need to manage. And later on, I started in Europe also growing. And also, my understanding was my way of expanding because I'm bringing a platform to very complicated environments, like you said, was working with business partners, business SAP that can work with my technology, business partners like consulting groups like, Deloitte and Accenture and other groups.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, like, walk me through the US entry. You were building it from outside the US, then you went there. So basically, do you have any connections there, or like how did you start? Because you have to start from scratch, right?
I started from scratch. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, right? And one of my big mistakes was, working with different consultants and people that explained until, I went to the US, put my boots on the ground, and started understanding to work with different local people. At the end of the day, wherever you work, you need those local peoples. I recruited, US employees. The culture is different. You need to talk differently. I learned, I made my mistakes, by it's from, recruiting employees. How do you work? How does the market work? What are the different needs? What's the approach? How does purchasing work? What's the contract vehicles? Remember, I work a lot with government, different regulations, cyber regulations, and so on, SOC 2, ISO, different environments. So very interesting. Yeah, it took me a lot of time to learn. I have a lot of experience now, so I can people, asking those questions. But yeah, you need to put your boots on the ground. You need to learn the environment. You need to do a lot of research. And at the end of the day, it's like we say, on-job training. You need to make.
Yeah, so all your network connection and expertise are built in Israel. Like, how did you start to build the B2B trust enterprises? Because it's such a different market and it's very niche. So it's really hard to get into it, especially government, like you're mentioning.
First of all, we brought a good product. We brought some references, what we've done in other areas. But it was starting those network connections locally. For me, myself, it was very helpful. I went to a conference called Select USA, where you come and you meet all the economic development of the different states and start getting those connections and that networking. And I think that was my at least, and that was very helpful. Later on, coming, for like road shows in different states, different areas, learning about the communities, meeting the people from. I've met people from Montana and Utah and New York and different environments, different needs, different challenges. So you need to do that work so you can put
Mhm.
those boots on the ground and understand locally how to work.
You did it yourself as the founder, right?
Yeah,
Why
that's
would you not hire someone to do it?
uh, my personal opinion is I'm the founder. It's my company. It's my baby. I need to touch things by myself. And
Yeah.
in those areas, I don't trust anyone. I need to learn by myself. I can let people work with me, but I need to hear those first customers. I need to hear those challenges. I need to see people. I need to look in their eyes. I need to, shake their hand and really feel the feeling of how is it to do business in that area. So at least to founders, I think they need to trust and not other people, when making those decisions.
And like if you compare New York to other states in the US, like is it similar to make the business connection or is totally different?
It's different. The U.S. states is different,
Mm,
So if you do business in Montana, it's very different environment, very good people. But in New York, everything's very fast, very rapid, very networking, very startup area, managing. So it's a little bit different. Working in Florida is a little bit different. So it depends on what's your goal, who's your end customer, where you want to be, a lot of different, ideas, workforce that you're looking for. I'm actually these days planning to my development center. So I'm actually focused in the East Coast, but I'm opening a new development center. So I'm focused more in the Maryland area. So it
mm.
really depends where you want to work. Right? You want to work on government, maybe Washington. So depends. Yeah, and it's a different environment, different community, different people, different depends on your technology, what you're selling, who's your end customer. So a lot of things.
And after that, you to Europe as well. Then what is the difference for the European market compared to the US market, like from your experience?
Every country is different regarding their culture. So I'm working in Germany and in the UK. So
Mm,
every place is different, unique. And if you're talking about decision intelligence platforms like myself, especially for government, especially for defense, different regulations, different challenges, different environments to adopt, talking about sovereign cloud environments, talking about their states, talking about culture, right? Everyone's a little bit
yeah.
different, similar but different, but the concept is the same.
Mhm.
Come there, learn the environment, have the local people, unless you start growing like I'm growing this days with your business partners that are local and bringing you the business, but that's a different approach.
So, like in Europe, Europeans usually prioritize business relationships. Like, need to know someone for a certain period of time and the background, then they'll work with you. Like, do you feel it's the same as the US, or as long as you have got really good product and people know the benefits and value, and they will just work with you?
I'll give you a few tips from my experience. First of all, business is between people. So you always need that personal connection. Doesn't matter if you're working in Japan, if you're working in Singapore, you need that personal touch. People need to see you, people need to trust you, and you're doing business between people. But
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a good product that actually is bringing value, not just features, value for a pain of your end customer, and you need also to deliver. That's your reputation. So if you ask me, those are the three main things I would recommend for any founder.
So, you started this many years before you even built forecast. Like you were doing consulting, advisory, and government contracts over 20 years. Like a lot of people with your background would have continued on because there's already the stability. Why do you want to jump and start a full company instead of just staying on your career? Why wasn't having that network already enough for you?
It's because I'm looking for challenges, and helping decision makers make better decisions, empower them, giving them new tools that don't exist in the market is exciting. It's challenging, and I love it. I love the challenge. You know, I love the competition. I love developing new things. I love what's happening around us now, and this is me. This is my DNA, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I need new goals. I need to do new things. I need to bring new systems. I need to help people manage their challenges, especially when we're talking about, sometimes giving a tool that can save lives for emergency managers. So that's me. That's me personally. So, everyone's a little bit different.
So this is the first company you started, right?
I've done other stuff times. I've developed it, but it wasn't my own company. I was working with people, creating different programs. And yeah, forecast is my baby.
You started forecast 8 years before up till now. Did you take any drastic pivot or make any big decisions that change how the company is operating?
Of course, on a day-to-day basis, especially when you start a new company, a new startup, things run fast, things change fast. You're moving, you're changing your organization, you're changing sometimes your market vertical, you're changing sometimes the product. And this is why when you're bringing people, onboarding people on, you need to tell them, look, this is you're coming for an experience, right? Things will change fast, things will move fast until you find, your right product market fit. You find your right vertical. Find the value that you're bringing, and also once you start scaling up, how can I support this, right? From delivery, from becoming more regulatory, from approaching different things, yeah, and it's a challenge. Sometimes it's on a day-to-day decision, but I can tell you, if I look at my company for the last 8 years,
Mm.
at least it's changed something like 22 times. There's a lot of changing. Yeah.
Oh, that's quite a lot. And it's actually the first people and role you hired when you started the company and up to like now, I mean, there's more and more people. So what and why did you hire that role?
So first of all, I think the main is the core tech guys. So for example, my CTO, he's been with me for more than 20 years.
Wow,
My
that's
lead
long.
developers are more than 20 years with me. So those guys started with me when we worked with in other areas before I founded Forecast, and they immediately came with me. And then there were the product people, that grew with me. So it's mainly the tech guys. Later on, bringing all those business development sales guys, that's a main challenge, because sometimes those guys, it's very hard to find the right person for it. The tech
Mm.
guys, a lot of times it's easier, but finding the right person that understands the business, understands the challenges, understands, especially in my line of work, bringing decision intelligence. It's a complex solution to complex markets, to complex questions, complex challenges, and that's where I'm at today at point. But now we're growing pretty fast. We're growing. We have a lot of good product people, but we also have internally our onboarding and training and teaching people. So that's great.
And so like as you're still growing and scaling, do you usually or do you prefer to hire from someone you know, like a referral or a warm network, or do you prefer to hire online someone that you have not met before?
I'm trying everything, right? But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times I had good results when I hired someone that someone knew.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that told me, look, this is a good person, but especially people that I've been working with. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be a business partner that you're learning about that person, but sometimes there's success online. The main challenge of hiring people is whatever you do in your recruiting process, at the end of the day, until you don't see that person, work with him at least, 3 months together, side by
Mm-hmm.
side, you don't really know who he is from different reasons: his capabilities, his motivation, his understanding, how he sees stuff. So very
Yeah.
interesting, questions that you're asking here.
Yeah, I mean, hiring is always the hardest part, especially when you start to scale, because hiring the right people with motivation to work for your business and understand your business, I think that's really challenging.
Yeah, and it also depends on your goals. When I founded Forecast, one of my main issues was having the understanding that my main strength will be my people, the
Mhm.
quality of my people, the ethics of my people. Because at the end of the day, our great platform is based on people. And I look at my employees today, and everyone's a great person, someone you want to be his friend, but also is a professional and also has that motivation. So that's the main challenge. How do you recruit the right people? How do you train them? How do you lead them on a day-to-day basis? How do you explain to them where you want to be, what you want to achieve? Yeah, that's one of the main being, a founder of a company.
Yeah, so one more question on this. Like, so if you were to choose to hire two-person A and B, like A is someone who has industry knowledge, decision intelligence, they know everything about the sector, but they don't really have a good attitude. And the other one, B, they don't really have so much knowledge of this industry and sector, but they are very, very willing to learn, have a good attitude. Which one will you choose?
Really depends, but usually I will choose option B. I will always take someone that has capabilities, of course, has basic skills, that I can teach them, because at the end of the day, at least in Forecast, we behave differently. It's a different technology. I train each and every one of my product owners, product managers in a different concept. If you come motivated with basic knowledge and you want to learn, those are people I prefer to work with. It's harder, in the onboarding process, but sometimes you get someone very skilled but with a bad attitude, they don't finish
Yeah.
their 1 year.
Yeah, that's true. And this is the question ask every founder on the show. So when you are navigating US market entry, or navigating a really decision yourself? Who did you ask, or did you have any advisors or mentor or people, close group that you always ask, or you just decide on your own?
Well, I decided everything on my own. At the beginning, start talking to a few consultants, but later on, it's like I told you, I came, you know, walked, boots on the ground, met people, met a lot of from government people, CEOs of companies, asked people, and make my own decisions for good and bad. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned from my mistakes. And today I'm also helping, young founders that want to ask me questions about what's the best way, what's the option, what did you do, so I can, give from my experience at least.
So you didn't have anyone you can ask in the past, like a founder friend that is above you, or like advisor, mentor, industry expert? Then what if there's a time when you have a really hard choice to make? Then how do you still decide by yourself?
Anyway, when you're leading a company, a lot of times, and that's how I think I understand decision makers that are also my customers. A commander of a military, a CEO, a fire department chief. At the end of the day, you're alone when you're making those decisions. You have people in different areas, so usually you're alone. So in those areas, it's mainly based on yourself. But I think today also there's a lot of different groups, of CEO, C-level people meeting, discussing, with friends and things like that. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's your decision. It's your result at the end of the day. So everyone's an individual.
So did you actually make a decision that cost you a lot, like a huge mistake, or did you never encounter this before?
Yeah, of course, always on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's from making a wrong decision of going to some kind of market vertical because everything's time and money, or developing some kind of feature that took you a lot of time and wasted your time, or deciding on the wrong person that your company. So every decision I've made always cost me money, and sometimes a lot of money, right? Managing wrong a program, developing something bad, learning a new market. So that's always the challenge. You will always make those mistakes. You need to learn from different people's experience. You need to have the best trusted people that you can work with. You can work with consultants. You can also approach people, like myself or other founders that make those mistakes, or maybe have a community of founders, have those discussions. But every decision you make costs you money, time, and sometimes it can be worse, right? Hit your reputation or things like that.
So, for example, if you made a decision that didn't go as you planned and it is not going well, either you lose money or something along the line, how long would you pivot? Like, how long will you analyze the situation before you decided, oh, this is the time I need to pivot before continuing the wrong path?
That's experience. In the past, it took me a lot of time and lose a lot of money. Today, I'm doing it very fast because I make a decision immediately. I'm actually using my decision intelligence platform, so I
Yeah.
can see the impact, understand the connection between the stuff. And once I decided and I'm starting to run, I'm always managing, looking, analyzing that decision if it was the right approach. Sometimes it can take months, sometimes it can take 2 or 3 months. You have to understand if you're in the right way, but at least if you're not, to cut your losses.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. So, like 8 years in now, what got harder after you committed to global expansion? What did you assume about the US market that is not true when you enter?
The mistake of saying, okay, it's a big market, there will be a lot of money, a lot of business. For example, for me, it was working with emergency management, right? A big market, but later on, once you start working, understand, okay, they don't have new technologies. And if you give them new technologies, they don't have enough budgets. You need to go to the federal level. And once you give them a technology, you need also to give them people to help them with that technology. So it was a different story. It took me something like 2 years to understand that market, for example, or sometimes understanding people's approach or the way they make decisions. Or so in other areas, people take more responsibilities. So every market is a little bit different, and it's all about you sitting down, learning. First of all, understanding what you don't know, and understanding that you need to come and ask those questions and be very humble and try to understand what's going in that market. Also, talk to people, understand, try to work with different consulting groups.
How do you find work-life balance as a founder, especially you built this up to 8 years? Was year one the same as now, year eight?
Always the same. When you're a founder, you're always in a peak. For me, work-life balance is important. I always invest in my kids. I
Mhm.
always go to there if it's a sport tournament or things like that. But that's you managing your work-life balance. It's important to invest, to grind, to be there, to be very focused on your missions, but don't forget for what you're doing it. And you're doing it also for your family. So that's the balance you need to take care of.
So did you have the same kind of balance when you just started, when everything was new and uncertain and messy as compared to now?
It's always uncertain. It's always changing. Like now
Yeah.
today, and I work a lot of hours, but I know how to manage it and balance it. And today you can also work, sometimes from home. You can work in different hours. You need to prioritize what's important for you and how do you manage it. The only difference is that today I have more people. I have more people that I trust, and it's not all based on me like it was in the past. So I can, you know, get more time to myself.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Since now the decision intelligence, the industry and the sector is not as wide, I think it's quite a close, small niche. You see in the next few years, especially with Gen AI and the AI evolution, do you think it will be impacted in any sense?
No, it's just going to grow. Like I told you, Gen AI is not impacting decision making or decision intelligence, but AI, different AI techniques are impacting, and people they want to be there, and they're utilizing better their data. And I think, and at least that's how it shows, the different researches that by 2030 it's going to expand tremendously the decision intelligence sector.
Yeah, I think so as well, especially with any information now on the internet. You do have to know which one is the right one and you have to validate it as well. So I have one last question here. If you were starting forecast again tomorrow from scratch, what is one decision or mistake you will change?
Wouldn't change anything. That's the things that we do, right? So probably I do
Mhm.
new mistakes. I'm talking now from experience that I have a lot of times. I don't think I would change. I think that what I did at the beginning and it's different today. My first approach was thinking I understand the market and running first of all to
Mhm.
develop. And now I first of all would run to the market and talk to people very rapidly and understand where is their pay and then go to the development process. But maybe that's the only thing I would do differently if I would start now a new company.
Mhm. And what is one thing that someone told you about selling AI platform to enterprises in the US that is completely wrong?
A lot of things they told me they're wrong. They told
Huh?
me, if you work in the defense market, no one will like it, in the enterprise environment. That's wrong totally. Also, when people told me, you can't approach and go because of different regulations. Yeah, it's a little bit harder.
Mhm.
And the different issue, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, is the level that exact organization is at. Their challenges, level of understanding how to adopt technologies, and that's for each and every company different.
So the final question, what advice would you give to someone who is building a startup in a very niche and new category?
First of all, believe in yourself, believe in your idea. Go to people, research a little bit, talk to who you think is the end customer. Talk to them about pains and gains and value that you can give them, and later on think if what you're developing is the right story for them. And once you choose a path, believe in yourself. A lot of people will tell you it's wrong, it's bad, you're not going the right way. You need to find it by yourself.
Have you ever not believed in yourself before, like through the 8 years? Do you have any doubt?
No, no, I never doubt myself. I believe my way. I believe in my goals. I believe in the lighthouse what I'm trying to achieve, and I'm fighting and grinding and going there. Yeah, and it's like in sports, right? I came from sports.
Mhm.
The idea
Yeah.
is you fall 1,000 times, but you need to keep on moving forward. That's it, and that's good advice in life anyway. It doesn't just in business.
Yeah. I think the hardest part is being able to believe in yourself, especially when everything is not certain. Like you cannot see, the end goal. And for startups, it's
Yeah,
almost like this every single day, ups and downs.
exactly, exactly.
All right, so I'm going to close this episode. I want to thank Nissim for the guest, attending our Utopia Decision Room podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today.
It was really nice to have you on the show and hopefully on the next show.